A simple woman rejected at hotel. The following night, she arrives in a limousine. But the real story isn't about revenge. It's about exposing the truth that would change everything. Day 47 of Project Glass Ceiling. Catherine Morgan's voice was steady as she spoke into her digital recorder, her reflection catching in the lens of her hidden camera, disguised as a simple brooch. The gray sweater and light-washed jeans she wore weren't her usual attire. They were her research uniform, carefully selected to appear ordinary, yet neat. This will be my 19th luxury establishment in Manhattan. Previous pattern holds consistent. 18 rejections based solely on appearance, despite financial capability. Unlike most people preparing for a night at a luxury hotel, Catherine wasn't choosing outfits to impress. She was methodically documenting a social experiment 3 years in the making. The walls of her modest apartment were covered with photographs, news clippings, and interview transcripts, a tapestry of America's invisible class barriers. Catherine wasn't just a filmmaker. She was the architect of the Invisibility Project, a groundbreaking social experiment disguised as a documentary. And tonight's target, the Excelsior Hotel, represented the pinnacle of institutionalized discrimination, hiding behind standards and policies. Initial approach will be standard. Request accommodation, present valid credit card, observe reaction, she continued, adjusting her unassuming earrings that contained state-of-the-art recording equipment. Network meeting tomorrow will determine if we proceed with Phase 2. Her phone buzzed. It was Marcus, her producer. Team is in position, his text read. Undercover cameras at lobby entrance, bar, and reception area. Remember, we're not just documenting rejection, we're revealing the system. Catherine smiled slightly. This wasn't personal for her. It was purposeful. Her own mother had spent 30 years working as housekeeping staff in hotels just like the Excelsior, invisible to the very guests whose messes she cleaned. Tonight was about making the invisible visible. Phase 1 initiating at 7 p.m., she recorded, slipping the device into her pocket. If patterns hold, Phase 2 will commence tomorrow at precisely 8 p.m. What the Excelsior staff would soon discover is that they weren't rejecting a simple hotel guest. They were becoming unwitting participants in a social revolution that would soon air on national television. The Excelsior Hotel's lobby gleamed with old-world opulence, marble floors that reflected crystal chandeliers, ornate gold detailing on every surface, and the subtle scent of money that no amount of designer perfume could replicate. Catherine entered with deliberate confidence, observing how heads turned and eyes narrowed at her simple attire. She wasn't just watching their reactions, she was cataloging them. The slight stiffening of shoulders from the doorman, the barely perceptible step back from a passing guest, the quickly exchanged glances between staff members. Subject approaching target area, she murmured into her hidden microphone, knowing her team across the street was receiving every word. This wasn't just another rejection to document. This was the culmination of a project that had already transformed 3 major hotel chains' policies nationwide. At the reception desk, a blonde woman in a precisely tailored black suit and tie looked up, her practiced smile faltering as she assessed Catherine's casual appearance. The name badge read, Melissa Winters, Front Office Manager. "Good evening," Catherine said pleasantly, sliding her platinum credit card across the counter. "I'd like your finest available suite, please." Melissa's eyebrows arched slightly as she took in Catherine's gray sweater and jeans. She made no move to touch the card. "Do you have a reservation?" "No, but I checked your website 20 minutes ago. You have 3 suites available," Catherine replied, her tone pleasant but firm. Melissa's smile tightened. "I'm afraid our system must be outdated. We're fully committed tonight." Catherine nodded, as if accepting this explanation. "That's interesting. Your online booking system showed real-time availability." "Looking shabby," Melissa muttered under her breath, just loud enough for nearby staff to hear. A tall man approached, his custom suit and authoritative stride marking him as management. "Is there a problem, Melissa?" "Mr. Reynolds, I was explaining to this person that we're fully booked." Reynolds cast a dismissive glance at Catherine. "I see." He turned to Catherine with practiced condescension. "Perhaps there's been a misunderstanding about our establishment. The Excelsior maintains certain standards for our clientele." Catherine's hidden cameras captured every word, every expression. This wasn't just personal discrimination. It was systematic policy masked as standards. exactly what she needed for her documentary's final sequence. "Are you refusing me service based on my appearance?" Catherine asked directly, deliberately loud enough for nearby guests to hear. Reynolds stiffened. "We have a dress code policy clearly outlined on our website, which I reviewed before coming. It states, neat, appropriate attire. Are you suggesting my clothes aren't clean or appropriate?" The confrontation was drawing attention now, exactly as Catherine had planned. Several guests paused their conversations to watch. A couple at the bar aimed phone cameras in their direction. "The interpretation of appropriate is at management's discretion," Reynolds replied coldly. "And in my professional assessment, your current presentation does not meet the Excelsior's standards." An unexpected voice cut through the tension. "Excuse me, what's happening here?" The voice belonged to an older gentleman in an impeccably tailored suit, his silver hair and commanding presence drawing all eyes. He wasn't part of Catherine's plan, an unexpected variable. "Mr. Harrington," Reynolds straightened immediately. "Nothing to concern yourself with. Just a misunderstanding about our availability." Harrington looked between Catherine and the staff, comprehension dawning in his eyes. "I couldn't help but overhear. Are you refusing this woman service because of how she's dressed?" Reynolds faltered. "Sir, we have standards." "I've been staying at the Excelsior for 20 years, Harrington interrupted, "and I don't recall judging people by their clothes being one of those standards." Catherine remained silent, observing this unexpected development. Her project had documented dozens of rejections, but never before had someone of obvious privilege intervened. She'd need to adjust her analysis. Melissa leaned forward, lowering her voice but not enough to escape Catherine's recording devices. "Sir, we're simply following protocol for undesirable guests. Looking shabby is against our dress code." "Undesirable?" Harrington's voice rose. "Based on what criteria?" Reynolds stepped in smoothly. "Mr. Harrington, I assure you we're simply maintaining the exclusive atmosphere our guests expect." Catherine caught Melissa shooting a meaningful glance at security. The situation was escalating exactly as predicted in her research models. "I understand," Catherine finally said, her dignity intact. "Thank you for making your policies so transparent." As she turned to leave, she pressed a small button on her bracelet, the signal to her team that Phase 1 was complete and documented. What the Excelsior staff didn't realize was that their behavior hadn't just cost them a potential guest. It had provided the perfect evidence for her exposé. Outside, she walked calmly to the designated meeting point where Marcus waited in an unmarked van. "We got everything," he confirmed, reviewing the footage on multiple screens. Their faces when they said, "looking shabby, priceless." Catherine nodded, her expression not angry but resolved. "Prepare the team for Phase 2 tomorrow night and call the network. Tell them we've got our finale." She wasn't seeking revenge, she was orchestrating revelation. And tomorrow night, when she arrived in that limousine, the Excelsior Hotel would become ground zero for a social awakening that would reach far beyond its marble walls. If this story has captured your attention, hit that subscribe button now to join our community of viewers who believe in the power of truth and justice. Now, let's get back to Catherine's plan. The network executives' conference room buzzed with energy as Catherine's team presented their findings. On the massive screen, footage from the Excelsior played in the high definition. Every dismissive glance, every whispered insult, every moment of unmasked discrimination captured with crystal clarity. 18 luxury establishments, all showing identical patterns, Catherine explained, standing confident in a professional charcoal suit that transformed her appearance from the previous night. The Excelsior represents the pinnacle of what we've documented. Institutionalized bias disguised as standards and policies. The network president, Diana Chen, leaned forward. "This is powerful, Catherine, but what makes the Excelsior story our finale? We need something that transcends the pattern, something unexpected." Catherine smiled, a quiet confidence in her eyes. "That's why Phase 2 happens tonight." She tapped her tablet, bringing up architectural plans of the Excelsior's grand ballroom. Tonight, the Excelsior hosts the annual Hospitality Excellence Awards. Every major hotel chain's CEO, every influential industry leader will be there. Diana's eyes widened with understanding. "You're not just confronting one hotel. I'm confronting the entire system, Catherine confirmed. 3 years of research has shown this isn't about individual bias. It's about an industry built on visible and invisible barriers. Tonight, we bring those barriers down. Back at her apartment, Catherine reviewed the evening's strategy with her team. The wall once covered with research was now transformed into an operations center. Photographs of industry leaders, seating charts for the gala, and multiple contingency plans. Marcus, your team will be positioned here, here, and here, she indicated on the hotel blueprint. Emma, you'll coordinate from the van, and Richard, she turned to her newest team member, you'll handle the live stream. Richard, a young tech specialist, looked up from his equipment. Everything's set. The moment you give the signal, we go live to 2 million followers across platforms. Catherine nodded, then moved to her closet. She pulled out the same gray sweater and jeans from the previous night, laying them carefully on her bed. You're wearing that again? Emma asked, surprised. Authenticity is everything, Catherine replied. This isn't about transformation or revenge. It's about showing that the same person in different contexts is treated differently. The clothes stay the same. As evening approached, Catherine stood before her mirror, adjusting the hidden camera brooch. This time, however, there was a difference. A small, almost imperceptible lapel pin bearing the logo of her documentary series. A crystal ceiling with hairline fractures spreading across it. Her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. What you're doing matters. I'll be there tonight. Harrington, the unexpected ally from the previous night. Catherine hadn't anticipated this development, but adaptability was key to any successful investigation. As twilight descended over Manhattan, a gleaming black limousine glided through the city streets toward the Excelsior. Inside, Catherine sat calmly, still dressed in her simple gray sweater and light-washed jeans. 3 minutes to arrival, the driver announced. Catherine pressed her earpiece. All teams, final positions. Remember, we're not creating a spectacle. We're revealing a truth. Marcus's voice came through clearly. Cameras in position. Emma's team is monitoring all hotel security channels. Richard? Catherine asked. Livestream ready? 2 million people on standby notifications. One word from you, and the world watches. Catherine closed her eyes briefly, centering herself. This moment represented the culmination of work that had begun when she was just a girl, watching her mother return home, exhausted from cleaning hotel rooms, invisible to the very world she maintained. This isn't about me, she reminded her team. This is about every person who's been judged by appearance rather than character. Every door closed because of perception. Every barrier maintained by those who benefit from it. The limousine slowed as it approached the Excelsior's glittering entrance, where red carpet had been rolled out for the evening's gala. Photographers lined the approach, capturing images of industry elites in evening wear. Ready? Marcus asked through the earpiece. Catherine's eyes opened, determination clear in their depths. Always. As the limousine door opened, Catherine stepped out. The same gray sweater, the same jeans, the same woman who had been deemed unworthy just 24 hours earlier. But this time, she wasn't alone. This time, she had purpose beyond rejection. This time, she had the truth. The Excelsior's entrance fell momentarily silent as Catherine emerged from the limousine. Photographers lowered their cameras in confusion. This simply wasn't what a gala attendee looked like. Security guards exchanged uncertain glances, clearly trying to determine if this casually dressed woman had mistakenly arrived at the wrong event. Catherine walked forward with purposeful confidence, her simple attire a stark contrast to the flowing gowns and tuxedos surrounding her. Behind her, the limousine remained at the curb, its presence lending her an authority that confounded those ready to dismiss her. "Ma'am, the public entrance is around the side." A security guard stepped forward, his tone polite but firm. Catherine smiled. "I'm here for the Hospitality Excellence Awards." She presented an invitation, genuine, personally addressed to her as director of the Invisibility Project. The guard examined it, confusion evident. "There must be some mistake." "There is no mistake," came a voice from behind them. Mr. Harrington approached, resplendent in a tuxedo. "Ms. Morgan is my guest tonight." Inside the lobby, Melissa Winters was directing staff for the gala when she spotted Catherine entering alongside Harrington. Her expression transformed from professional poise to barely concealed horror. "Mr. Reynolds," she hissed urgently to her superior. "She's back, the woman from yesterday." Reynolds turned, his face paling slightly as he recognized Catherine in her distinctive casual attire. "How did she get past security?" "She's with Harrington," Melissa whispered, panic rising. "What do we do?" Reynolds straightened his tie, composing himself. "We remain professional. Perhaps she's his charity case or something. Just keep her away from the industry executives." Too late. Catherine was already moving confidently through the pre-gala reception, Harrington at her side making introductions. With each conversation, she presented her business card, identifying her as the director of the Invisibility Project. "Fascinating concept," remarked the CEO of Continental Hotels, examining her card. "Social experiment disguised as documentary?" "More accurately, truth disguised as experiment," Catherine replied. "We've been documenting how the hospitality industry treats people based solely on appearance." The CEO's interest was piqued. "And what have you found?" "Perhaps you should ask your frontline staff," Catherine suggested. "Or better yet." She gestured subtly toward where Reynolds and Melissa were anxiously watching from across the room. Throughout the reception, Catherine moved with purpose, her hidden cameras documenting everything. The whispered comments about her attire, the sideways glances, and most importantly, the growing realization among hotel staff that something significant was unfolding. As guests began moving toward the ballroom for the main event, Reynolds finally mustered the courage to approach. "Ms. I don't believe we caught your name yesterday," he began, attempting to regain control. "Catherine Morgan," she replied calmly. "Director of the Invisibility Project." "I see." His forced smile couldn't hide his discomfort. "There seems to have been a misunderstanding yesterday. Had we known who you were—" "That's precisely the point, Mr. Reynolds," Catherine interrupted gently. "Your treatment shouldn't depend on who I am. It should be consistent regardless of perceived status or appearance." Reynolds faltered, suddenly aware of Harrington and several industry executives listening nearby. Catherine continued, her voice carrying just enough to be heard by those around them. "Yesterday you called me undesirable and shabby because of these clothes. Today these same clothes are walking into your most prestigious event. The difference isn't the clothes, it's the perception of power." A small crowd had gathered now, intrigued by the exchange. Melissa hovered anxiously at the periphery, clearly wishing to disappear. "Ms. Morgan," Reynolds attempted damage control, "perhaps we could discuss this privately." "That's not necessary," interrupted a new voice. Diana Chen, the network president, approached with purpose. "Ms. Morgan's observations will be discussed quite publicly, in fact." Reynolds looked between them, comprehension dawning. "You're with the media." "I'm with the truth," Catherine corrected. She glanced at her watch. "And in approximately 3 minutes, 2 million people will be as well." Inside the grand ballroom, the gala was beginning. The industry's elite took their seats at elegantly appointed tables, unaware of the revelation about to unfold. On stage, preparations for the evening's awards ceremony continued. Catherine took her assigned place at Harrington's table, directly in view of the stage. Around her, executives in formal attire shot curious glances at her simple sweater and jeans, her earpiece activated. "Livestream ready?" Richard confirmed. "Network feeds standing by." The ballroom lights dimmed slightly as the event's host took the stage. Ironically, a celebrated TV personality known for his segments on luxury travel. He welcomed the audience, speaking glowingly about the highest standards of hospitality excellence. Catherine touched her earpiece. "Now." Across the room, hidden screens suddenly activated, interrupting the host's speech. The ballroom fell silent as yesterday's footage began playing, Catherine being rejected, the "looking shabby" comments, the dismissal based purely on appearance. "What is this?" demanded the host, looking off stage for explanation. Catherine stood, her voice clear and steady. "This is the reality behind hospitality excellence." All eyes turned to her as she walked confidently toward the stage, her simple gray sweater and jeans now the most powerful attire in the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Catherine Morgan. For 3 years, I've been documenting how the hospitality industry, your industry, treats people based solely on appearance." More screens activated, showing similar rejections at different luxury establishments throughout the city. In each case, the person was well-spoken, financially capable, but simply dressed differently than expected. "Last night I was rejected by this hotel," the Excelsior, host of tonight's Excellence Awards. I was called shabby, undesirable, and told I didn't belong. Tonight, I'm wearing the exact same clothes, but arriving in a limousine changes everything. The ballroom remained stunned into silence. At the back, Reynolds and Melissa stood frozen, their faces captured on the very screens displaying their discriminatory behavior. This isn't about individual employees, Catherine continued. This is about a system that trains people to value appearance over character, perception over reality. A system many of you in this room have built and maintained. She gestured to the screens, now showing her mother in a hotel housekeeper's uniform. For 30 years, my mother cleaned rooms in hotels like this one. She was essential, but invisible. The invisibility wasn't accidental. It was by design. A design that extends to how you determine who belongs and who doesn't. Diana Chen approached the stage, taking position beside Catherine. The Invisibility Project documentary series premieres next month on National Network. But tonight, thanks to Ms. Morgan's work, 2 million people are watching this live stream, witnessing the gap between hospitality's promise and its practice. The revelation crashed through the ballroom like a wave. Some executives looked defensive, others embarrassed, and a surprising number appeared genuinely thoughtful, as if seeing their industry through new eyes. At the back of the room, Melissa had slipped away, but Reynolds remained, his professional facade crumbling as he realized the magnitude of what was unfolding. Harrington stood next, approaching the stage. As someone who has benefited from luxury hospitality for decades, I never questioned who wasn't in the room with me. Ms. Morgan's work has opened my eyes, and hopefully yours as well. Catherine surveyed the room, her gaze finally settling on Reynolds. This isn't about punishment or public shaming. It's about recognition and change. The question isn't whether bias exists in your establishments. We've proven it does. The question is, what will you do about it? The ballroom, moments ago a monument to exclusivity, had transformed into something else entirely. A space for uncomfortable but necessary truth. And at its center stood Catherine Morgan, in her simple gray sweater and jeans, finally visible to everyone. 3 months later, Catherine sat in a sleek conference room overlooking Central Park. Across from her, executives from 12 major hotel chains presented their newly developed Fair Welcome standards, comprehensive policy changes directly inspired by the Invisibility Project. All frontline staff will undergo quarterly bias recognition training, explained the CEO of Continental Hotels, and mystery guests of varying appearances will regularly test our adherence to these standards. Catherine nodded, reviewing the document before her. And the transparency requirements? Monthly public reporting of all service refusals and their justifications, confirmed another executive. Complete accountability. The meeting concluded with handshakes and genuine commitments, not just corporate performative changes, but structural reforms with measurable outcomes. Catherine gathered her materials, now dressed in a professional but modest suit, her transformation reflecting not a change in values, but in context. Outside, Diana Chen waited with the latest ratings report. 26 million viewers for the finale, Catherine. The Invisibility Project is officially the most watched documentary series in our network's history. Catherine smiled slightly. And the Excelsior? That's actually why I wanted to meet in person. Diana handed her a folder. They've asked to speak with you, not about legal action, about consultation. Later that afternoon, Catherine walked through the Excelsior's gleaming lobby, the same space where she'd been rejected months earlier. The difference now was palpable. Staff greeted guests with genuine warmth, regardless of attire, and a prominent sign displayed the new inclusive service pledge. At the reception desk stood a familiar face, Melissa Winters, still employed but clearly operating under different protocols. Recognition flickered in Melissa's eyes, followed by genuine discomfort. Ms. Morgan, they told me you were coming. Hello, Melissa, Catherine replied without malice. I owe you an apology, Melissa said, her usual confidence replaced with sincerity. What I said to you that night, looking shabby, it was inexcusable. Catherine studied her. Why did you say it? Melissa considered the question thoughtfully. Because that's what was rewarded here, identifying who belonged and who didn't. I thought I was protecting something valuable, exclusivity. I didn't realize I was actually damaging something far more valuable: humanity. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of the hotel's new general manager, Mr. Harrington himself, who had purchased controlling interest in the Excelsior following the gala revelation. "Catherine," he greeted her warmly, "come see what we've done with the place." As they toured the hotel, Harrington explained the comprehensive changes implemented, from hiring practices to staff training to eliminating coded language about desirable guests. "Anne Reynolds?" Catherine asked. "Resigned the night of the gala," Harrington replied. "But several others stayed, committed to being part of the solution. Melissa has actually become one of our strongest advocates for change." They paused at a wall now displaying photographs of hotel staff at all levels, from executives to housekeepers, maintenance workers to chefs, each with their name and years of service prominently featured. "The formerly invisible, now recognized," Catherine observed. "Your mother worked in hospitality for 30 years, Harrington noted. "What would she think of all this?" Catherine considered the question, emotion briefly crossing her features. She'd say it was about time, but she'd also say that real change isn't about a single moment of revelation. It's about what happens after, when the cameras are gone and only commitment remains. That evening, as dusk settled over the city, Catherine stood on her apartment balcony reflecting on the journey. On her table lay offers for new projects, speaking engagements, and book deals. Opportunities born from confronting injustice with purpose rather than anger. Her phone buzzed with a message from Marcus. "Have you seen this?" Attached was a social media post showing a young woman in casual clothes being welcomed with respect at the Excelsior. The caption read, "3 months ago, this place rejected someone for looking shabby. Today, they welcome me like I belonged. Change is possible." Invisibility Project. Catherine smiled. This was never about revenge or personal vindication. It was about creating space for others to be seen, regardless of appearance or status. In the distance, the Excelsior's lights glowed against the darkening sky, no longer a symbol of exclusion, but a beacon of possibility. Catherine had arrived in a limousine not to prove her worth to those who had rejected her, but to illuminate a truth that would change an industry. And that was the most powerful transformation of all. Has someone ever judged you based solely on your appearance? Or have you caught yourself making snap judgments about others? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more powerful narratives that reveal the complexity of human dignity and the possibility of meaningful change. Hit the notification bell so you never miss our weekly stories, and join our community of viewers who believe in the power of truth to create a more just world. Until next time, remember that true value isn't determined by appearances, but by character and purpose. And sometimes, the most powerful statement isn't arriving in a limousine. It's staying true to who you are, regardless of who's watching.